Welcome to video M18B on strategic performance. So this is another short video in our Chapter 18 series, and I think you're going to see it goes by pretty quick, but unfortunately no Bill Nye. So strategic performance measurement is a system used by top management to evaluate its SBU managers. So obviously before designing any strategic performance measurement system, one of the things that top management really needs to determine is how they're going to delegate responsibility. And the two bookends on this are decentralized and centralized. And of course, a firm is decentralized if it's chosen to delegate a lot of responsibility to the SBU manager. And then a centralized firm, of course, reserves much of the decision-making to the top level of management. So centralized firms can provide more control and obviously should lend themselves to the expertise of the top management, assuming that can be effectively utilized. Decentralized firms tend to be more able to move quickly and make decisions down at the operational level. And typically that's because top management might lack the necessary local knowledge. So decentralized firms are often more motivating for managers, because they're an excellent environment for training future top-level managers. And that can provide a better basis for performance evaluation. So we talked about this in the last video, these four types of SBUs. So a cost center is a firm's production or support department that are charged with the responsibility of providing the best quality product or service at the lowest cost. So for example, the data processing department or shipping and receiving department. Revenue centers focus on the selling function, and they're typically defined by either a product line or a geographic area, the West region. Profit centers are when a strategic business unit both generates revenue and incurs the major portion of the cost for producing those revenues. Now it's a profit center. Investment centers are basically where assets are employed by the strategic business unit, and as well as hopefully that generates some profits that can be evaluated for performance. So direct manufacturing and manufacturing support departments are often evaluated as cost centers, since the managers have significant direct control over costs, but generally do not have a lot of control over revenues or decision-making for the entire facility itself. And cost shifting occurs when a department replaces a controllable cost with a non-controllable cost. So for example, something like shifting from a variable cost to a fixed cost. So a lot of performance measurement systems focus excessively on short-term cost figures. And as a result, they tend to neglect the long-term strategic issues. So the majority of cost centers have some amount of budgetary slack. And budgetary slack is the difference between the budgeted and the expected performance. And budgetary slack isn't always a bad thing. It can be good as it tends to reduce risk aversion. But of course, too much slack in the system can result in lower employee effort and clearly complicate the planning process. So we think about there being two methods of assigning costs to cost centers: a discretionary cost approach. And in this case, most of the costs are mainly fixed and therefore uncontrollable, and firms are going to use an input-oriented planning focus because outputs are ill-defined. So the focus needs to be on budgeting and planning versus an engineered cost approach where the costs are mainly variable and therefore they are controllable. Well, now firms can look at an output-oriented evaluation focus, and the outputs need to be well-defined and should be, and the focus is on that evaluation. So cost center choice between these two may change over time. So for example, if cost reduction is a key objective, for something like the human resources department, you might treat it as an engineered cost center. But later, it might be changed to a discretionary cost center to try to motivate managers to focus on the achievement of longer-term goals. So support department cost patterns look a little bit like this graphic we've shown. So they typically follow what we call a step cost pattern. And in this case, for example, the number of employee applications that can be handled by a single HR employee is around 100. So as the number of apps increases, the costs step upward as a function of adding a new employee. Of course, part-time or temporary resources can often be used to smooth those steps out. So revenue centers are typically used by management with revenue drivers when they're evaluating the performance. So revenue drivers in manufacturing firms, for example, are factors that are going to affect sales volume. Things like price, promotions, discounts, customer service, changes in features, delivery dates, other things that add value to the customers. Revenue drivers in service firms often will focus on the quality of the service. So a profit center manager's goal is, guess what? To earn profits. So 3 strategic issues cause firms to typically choose a profit center rather than a cost or a revenue center. So first off, profit centers provide the incentive for coordination among marketing, production, and support functions, because now you're capturing both the top line, the revenue center side, and the bottom line, if you will, which is the cost center side. Profit centers tend to motivate service department managers to consider even their product as marketable to outside customers, right? So even if it's a support center, the idea is think about how you would behave if there were outside customers. And then lastly, profit centers motivate managers to develop new ways to earn a profit from their products and services. That brings us to the end of video M18B. Our next video is on the contribution income statement. And we're actually going to have to do a little math again. Thanks for watching.